We're going to look at Amplitube 4 as just an introduction to the landscape of a guitar amplifier simulation program. This is what you would see when you first open up the program, and this is what it would sound like. You can hear that there's a spring reverb in here, and you can see that on the screen there. This is for their multi-track recorder, which this comes with. We're not really worried about that right now, but that's what's over here on this side. Up here is how you get through to the different parts of the amp simulation software itself. And of course, you have access to a tuner. 1 through 8 give you different patch setups. So you can go serially and then into 2 cabinets with 1 signal, or you can do a stereo setup. This is before your amp. This is where like you'd put your stomp boxes. You have an insert. If you're familiar with inserts, generally they're on the back of the amp. It's something you can put into the amp that goes in and out from an effect and returns into the amp and then goes out through the amp in the post stage. You have a cabinet. You can select cabinets, and you have a separate effects rack, which you can also use stomps in. They're interchangeable on this program, which is a nice feature. So here's your amp. You can see that you can pick different amplifiers, different front end sections. This is the preamp, and then you have an EQ section. You can select see the different EQs. They try to match the amplifier they're trying to simulate. Then you have an output stage. You can select the type and wiring of your output tubes, which is really, this is the kind of flexibility that I wrote about in the introductory article about why you might want to consider using something like this. Of course, the quality is the final arbiter as to whether or not you're going to want to use these things. We can go through all these different amplifiers. So you'd select an amp. You can play with any of these other things you want to choose here. So let's take a look at the cabinet, which is a strong point in this particular application. You can change your cabinet. You can change the room you're in. You can change the placement of the room mics. You can change the kind of mics you use. You have a selection of 2 maximum on your amps. You can change the mix between those, all those different. This is the room mic. It's on 1 fader. You can change the width. You'll see the microphones change their width. You could pan them if you so desire. You can also pan out your microphones that are on your speaker cabinets. In addition to that, you can change where they're placed, up and down, front and back, move them closer. You get a better look at this here. If you go to the microphones, you can actually see where on the cone you're placing the microphone. And you have, of course, your microphone selection panel here. So, in terms of what I was saying as a value, again, this kind of thing is impossible for most of us on our budgets. And of course, it's not, these are not Neumann microphones. This is all software replicating of actual hardware. So, of course, there may be some limitations. There won't be the same infinite number of characteristics involved. But again, if you're using it as a tool, you start to understand what it does to the sound. So you can just use it as part of your palette to craft the sound that you want. It may not match up to a studio's Neumann, but it may help you define the sound that you're looking for. So when in that case, it serves its purpose. All of these things are going to be somewhat limited, at least at this point in time, as to how far they can exactly match any of the hardware, because the hardware itself doesn't match from one to another. This is not a perfect world. None of this stuff is perfect, but it sure is, to me anyway, a great portal into the future of what guitarists and bass players can look to do as far as trying to design their sounds. It gives you a lot of flexibility. You can save all of these things as presets. You can easily call them up. You can adjust them for live situations. You can adjust, if you have a sound that you used on a song that was just imperative to replicate, if you laid down that song using this software or another software package and you saved that preset, then you have that to use at all times or to modify as you see fit. Anyway, here's some of the microphone selections. You have condensers, ribbons, and dynamic mics. What else is nice? Let's look at the cabinets. I need to take you through that. So, okay, so we're basically replicating a Fender here. The spring reverb. I could show you some of the, let's take out the room mic. So if you're listening in stereo, you notice that you're listening as if your head was right down by the speaker. Then you add the room. You're listening as if you were standing back here because I'm using maximum room mic, and you can blend it as you see fit. Not only that, there are other rooms. And then again, you can select different microphones. So here's the Neumann. Hear a little crackling there because of some of the overhead. We're not using much CPU power here, but sometimes when you're making adjustments, your computer is using a little more processing power, so it will affect the audio. But once you're set up, you don't have that problem. There's both mics mixed. You can pan them. Add some room. Oh, the speakers. This is another great aspect of this thing. You can change all these speakers out. You have this, like I say, it doesn't come with these, but in a full-blown situation, you have all these different speakers to select, and you can change them out in a multi-speaker cabinet. Let's do that. In a multi-speaker cabinet, you can change out the speakers in their individual spaces, all four. So if you want a particular blend of different kinds of speakers, you can do that. I don't think I know too many people that have the resources to do this kind of thing within their budget. But and again, it's limited. It's not real. This is not the real thing. But it's really, really. I mean, it's worth the investment, at least to me, anyway. And I think you'll find that's true. So now we're effectively playing the Fender amplifier section into this Amplitube cabinet, which is using Brit 80 speakers. Which sounds pretty good to me. And again, you can hear some room in there. We take the room out. Panning's not doing a whole lot. The mics sound pretty similar. So what's it sound for a dirty sound? What's it sound like with a dirty sound? Not bad. This is a Slash version of a Marshall cabinet with an 8000, I think a Marshall 8000 style. Marshall 8000 style head. Almost all flat. I do have a selection of stomps here. See, so this this is what you start to get into. You have two banks of stomp boxes that you can use. And you can use your inserts. I have a gate in there. Here, it cuts out. Noise, the gain structure is another important topic that we'll probably talk about. Because keeping your noise level down with these things and getting a good sound without a lot of heavy gating can be a little bit of a challenge. And that has to do with some of the hardware you're using at home, your computer, your electrical system, whether your house is wired with a grounding, and if your stuff is properly grounded and polarization is correct and all that kind of thing, which is all important to consider if you want to get the cleanest possible tone. Now, with some of the high volume stuff, I guess it's not really that important, but I try to get the cleanest, noiseless sound I can, even with high gain patches. It's a little hard to get Amplitube to thump at the bottom. Part of what I look for in these is that sound of a cabinet and wood. When you turn it up and it starts to really react with the wood and you get that resonance in the cabinet, you can approximate that if you're pretty crafty and you spend some time with this. Some of these programs are easier than the others. I find the positive grid bias effects to be easier to get a bottom end sound with than Amplitube. Amplitube tends to be more toppy, more MIDI, which is good or bad depending upon how, the kind of sound you're looking for. To me, that doesn't sound too bad. This is, of course, is like your tube screamer. And again, for the value here, you're getting, they have a... The Overdrive is a simple distortion that comes with, I think, the basic package. Of course, I guess I just noticed, too, that I have a lot going on the back end here that I probably should show you. This is another aspect of this that I think is really inviting about this, is you can set up your post-effect area. If it's something you like to use on a routine basis, you have access to that quickly, and you can tweak it just the way you want it and have it there to call up. All of these rack settings can be saved and recalled at a later time. I have I think I have two kinds of delay here. I've got a short and a long delay. The chorus is off, but I have a short delay here. As you can see, it's about 15 milliseconds, and it's a stereo delay. And then I have a longer delay here, which is based on the beats per minute, which I think we're at 120 here. I'm not sure. I can't. Oh, there it is. Yeah. I have a little reverb. I'm taking off a little bit of the unnecessary top end. I've got a little compression, which is not even engaged right now. So basically what you're hearing is a little top end shaved off, a little reverb, and a short and a long delay. And that's all happening in the post section. Then I have the cabinet set up. I took some time with this previously. What is it, 421, I think? I don't remember. What else? And up at the front end, as you can see, I'm using a gate, just pulling out a little of the hiss at the top. You have to be real careful with gates because some of them, they don't all work the same. A gate is not a gate is not a gate. And some of these are more called noise suppressors or noise gates. So you really have to use some care when dialing that in, or else it starts to really So spend some time with your gate. I mean, for this sound, I could actually leave it off. Why not? So this is just a small selection of the different things you can go through here. You have all of these packages. You can buy a Fender package, Full Tone, Morley, Seymour Duncan / T-Rex, Wampler, Z-Vex, Rax, stuff, rotary speakers. So you get a wealth of things to play with. It's up to you to sort of learn how to twist some knobs and spend some time with it. Now, maybe you're not the kind of guy or girl that likes to do that. You like to buy a thing because you know that that's how the thing sounds. You can trust it. That's a perfectly viable approach to this. This is not a snobbery kind of a deal here. This is not to say that a great amp is not a great amp and great hardware is not great hardware. It's a different thing. I would say if you can't tell the difference on a recording, then you've succeeded. All we're trying to do here, this is almost more like synthesis. You're developing a sound. And with guitar now, it just involves a different piece of equipment, because there was a time when all this junk was not considered purist. You know, you shouldn't have all this stuff before your amplifier. It makes it sound all scratchy, you know? So it's part of the evolution of just the electrically amplified string instrument. I would say you could use it for anything that you like that can be amplified. But as far as guitars go, I think it's a great addition to your palette. And I would go so far as to say you could even make this the center point of your rig for live and recording purposes, which is another thing we'll talk about, because getting this out and into a venue is another topic that requires some forethought. There's different dynamics. There are different dynamics involved when you go to amplify these things. I hope I've sort of given you some introduction to these things. Most of the packages that you will see have some variation of these kinds of things. There's a tuner. You can play along with music. This is one of the best as far as cabinet, speaker, and room and mic selections that I've seen. Other things have that. Sometimes they're just a lot more limited, or sometimes they don't really work that well, which is another thing. You know, these things are not all the same. You're converting analog signals to digital and back again, and you're also engaging in the complex task of trying to recreate highly detailed harmonic content and distortion. Distortion, you know, sounds like like a throwaway term, but how the string is changed by the way it's distorted within the preamp and the amplifier section and the speakers and the guitar and the cabinet, the way the whole thing interacts is really a big and wonderful process. And that's part of what makes it all such a great thing to be involved in. I'm a nerd. I can spend a lot of time with this stuff, and generally speaking, it's very rewarding. So I hope you enjoyed this or you found something interesting in it. We'll talk some more about all these other things, and we'll delve deeper into using amp simulation packages to get your sound. And I hope to help you find the sound that inspires you, because these sounds do inspire me. When you come upon a great sound, you just want to play, you know, and it doesn't bother anybody. It doesn't have to be, you can wear a good pair of headphones or earbuds. It'll be there the next time you turn it on. I'm just really a big fan. So anyway, until the next one, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope it's helped.